Fender Jaguar Squier Precision Frankenbass 100-point review. Welcome to another video in my 100-point review series. This one's a bit different because I'm looking at one of my own twisted creations, a Frankenbass consisting of the neck from a Fender Player Jaguar, the body of a Squier Affinity Precision, and a few other assorted parts I cobbled together into an unholy monster of an instrument. This is obviously not an instrument you can just go out and buy, although you can easily buy all of the components. But would you want to, and would it be worth it? This video is a chance for me to evaluate exactly what I put into this instrument against how happy I am with it. That means I'm weighing the merits of objective critique versus subjective experience. I love this bass, partly because I put a lot of my own care and attention into it, but mostly because it really does feel great to play. A big reason why it feels great to play is the quality of the neck, and the absolutely perfect action and setup I've been able to achieve. That's partly a matter of luck. Fender and Sonata QC has been hit or miss in recent years. The neck from this particular Player Jaguar that I received is exceptionally good. Before I get into the review, I want to tally up exactly what went into this bass and how much it cost. Let's break down all of the components and the costs, including the full initial cost of the instrument minus any money recouped by selling parts. Fender Player Jaguar Bass Neck. I was lucky to get the Player Jaguar Bass in May 2024 from Chicago Music Exchange when they were closing out the original Player Series instruments for the reduced price of $679.99. I believe they were originally retailing for $800. Squier Affinity Precision Bass Body. I wanted a white precision bass body. I found that you could buy a replacement body from Fender for about $250, but for only $30 more, I could get an entire Squier Affinity Precision. Whether or not I would have any use for the other parts, I didn't know, but I liked the fact that the Affinity was routed for PJ pickups instead of just the precision split coil, so I went with it. The Squier Affinity's potentiometers were surprisingly good. I was especially impressed with the range of the tone pot, so I kept them in the final setup. I just have to take a moment to praise the quality of the Squier. The cavities were fully coated with conductive shielding paint, and the electronics were properly grounded. Excellent work that I didn't need to do myself. I bought the Squier Affinity from Sweetwater in January 2025 for $279.99. Squier 40th Anniversary Precision Bass Split Coil Pickup. The Squier Affinity P pickup was certainly usable, but I just had this pickup lying in a drawer because I had already swapped it out for a DiMarzio on the 40th Anniversary Precision. It's hard to put a price tag on this given the complicated history, and if I didn't just have it sitting in a drawer, I probably wouldn't have replaced the stock split coil pickup at all, so I'm going to say $0. DiMarzio Ultra Jazz Noiseless Single Coil Pickup. I originally bought this to swap into the Jaguar in place of its standard Fender single coil pickup, and I swapped it over to this bass shortly after I assembled it. I bought this direct from DiMarzio for $89. Goto Standard Bass Bridge. I initially bought this bridge for my Mustang bass, but I ended up not using it. It seemed like a natural, nice upgrade for the Frankenbass. I bought it from StewMac for $29. Pickguard. The Squier came with a black pickguard. It was fine, but I had several pickguards in a variety of colors just sitting in a drawer, and I really liked how the mint green looks against the white body, so I went with it. This was just a cheap Amazon purchase, about $20. Knobs. These are just for fun. There was no real need to swap out the stock Squier knobs, but I had these lying around, and I wanted to use them for a quirky mix-and-match look, to go with the deliberately mismatched pickups. I'm going to estimate $10 for the set. Total cost before resale, $1,127.98. As my bass churn continued, I did end up selling the Jaguar body for about $300, but minus fees and whatnot, I recouped $227.09.
$1.09!
I also ended up selling that Squier 40th Anniversary Precision Bass, even though it was truly an excellent instrument, just because this bass made it redundant. I shouldn't necessarily count that sale against the cost of this bass, although I did source the split coil pickup from it. My final payout from that sale was $331.65. The money from those sales was going to go towards the purchase of a new 5-string, but since that failed, twice, I'm going to be generous to myself and consider both of these sales as deductions to the cost of this Frankenbass. Total cost after resale, $569.24. Okay, let's get into the review, and then I'll decide whether this bass was worth it, both at $569 and $1,128. Again, my 10 categories for evaluation are design, neck, electronics, pickups, cavities, hardware, nut, bridge, action, and sound. Design. There are few designs more iconic than the Fender Precision Bass. As much as I enjoyed the slightly quirky appearance of the Jaguar, especially in seafoam green, I kept feeling the pull of the classic P-bass body design. And even though I tend to be into bright, bold colors, I went with a white body because I really love the look. Plus, it gives me an opportunity to mix things up with different colors of pickguards. Any color goes with white. I had various options at my disposal. I had planned to use the orange one until I tried the mint green and immediately fell in love. One thing I don't totally love about a precision bass is the chunky neck. The Jaguar neck is a great alternative to that, which I'll talk about more in the next section. Suffice to say, it still has that classic Fender look. In the spirit of this being a Frankenbass, I wanted to throw in some quirkiness, aside from the incongruity of the Jaguar decal on the headstock with a precision body. I decided to mismatch the pickup covers and knobs. Why bother assembling a Frankenbass if it looks like it came straight from the factory? And for those who care, i.e. me, you still have that all-important Fender branding both on the headstock and the neck plate. For design, since this bass is tailored to my personal tastes, I of course am giving it a 10 out of 10. Neck. This Fender Player Jaguar Bass neck is a thing of beauty. Satin poly finish on the back for a perfectly smooth playing feel, with none of the stickiness that can come from sweaty hands on a gloss neck. The fingerboard is my preferred gloss maple. I like the look, and I find there's slightly less risk of seasonal fret sprout than with untreated rosewood or similar. The fretwork is perfect, with no rough edges and no dead spots or buzz. I should say here that I absolutely do not believe that every Fender and Sonata neck is finished to this level of perfection. In fact, I know from experience that they are not. I got extremely lucky with my particular Jaguar bass, but that doesn't change the fact that this neck is fantastic. 10 out of 10. Electronics. I definitely did not expect that I would keep the stock Squier potentiometers and wiring setup in this bass, but I tried them out and found they were really excellent. Smooth turning, no crackle, and the tone pot has way more range than most basses I've tried, especially in the low-end price range. This is, of course, just a bare-bones setup with volume tone and no active electronics, although, as I've said countless times, I prefer passive electronics. Bottom line here, though, is that I have nothing to complain about, but I might still swap them out for a reason that will become clear momentarily. 8 out of 10. Pickups. I'll be honest here, and this may have to do somewhat with my lack of knowledge. I've installed DiMarzio pickups in just about every bass I've owned that had single coil pickups. They're one of the cheapest legit third-party options. I think they have a great sound, but most importantly, they're noiseless. That is the reason I swapped them out. That said, the DiMarzio Ultra Jazz has distinctly lower output than the Squier split coil pickup, and I'm not sure if I have it wired wrong, even though I followed DiMarzio's instructions, but it seems like they might be out of phase. What I do know is I mostly play with the neck pickup soloed, and if I switch to the bridge pickup, I need to turn up the volume on my amp because I have nowhere to go on the bass itself. And if I turn both pickups to full, the overall output drops noticeably as well. Rolling one pickup off slightly brings back full volume, but I lose much of the combined sound. Chalk this score up probably to my own ineptitude in this realm. Fortunately, there's room for me to make further upgrades in the future, ideally to a fully integrated pickup and electronics set. The individual pickups sound fine on their own, but are not very usable in combination, and if I'm going to use the bridge pickup soloed, I need to plan ahead with my volume and EQ settings on the amp. 6 out of 10. Cavities. Fender and Squier are very inconsistent lately, and often cut corners with the parts of the instrument that you can't see, i.e. the cavities. I've had a $2,000 Mod Shop Fender show up with zero shielding and a bunch of polish residue left in the cavities. I've had mid-range instruments that came with full shielding and grounding, and others from the same series come without any of that. So I really did not have high hopes for this with the Squier Affinity, the second cheapest series they currently produce. And I was completely shocked when I disassembled the Squier and found full shielding and grounding in the cavity. It's probably the best cavity work I've gotten on any Fender or Squier, honestly. As to that theory I mentioned earlier, this bass was produced in mid-2024. I suspect that they may have actually been building this run of Squier Affinity instruments to the spec of the Fender Standard series, at the same Indonesian factory of course, as a trial run for establishing the manufacturing process and quality control of the Standard. I have no way to prove that, of course, but whatever the reason, the hidden work on the Squier Affinity was excellent and saved me the hassle of shielding the cavities myself. I'm sure it could be better, but it didn't need to be anywhere near as good as it is. 9 out of 10. Hardware. Again, there is an odd assortment here. We have the stock Fender tuners from the Jaguar, and some custom knobs I sourced myself, placed onto the stock Squier potentiometer shafts. The tuners are excellent. The knobs fit the shafts fine and turn smoothly, although I still need to make a few adjustments for pure perfection. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10, knocking off 1 point solely for my own lack of perfection in execution. Nut. This is the stock nut from the Jaguar neck. I really did not do anything to the neck at all because I'm so happy with it. It's a synthetic bone nut, whatever that really means. It looks like there's some neck stains splashed onto the sides, but at least they didn't obviously paint the front of it white, like they seem to have done with the Player Plus Jazz 5 I reviewed previously. The nut is cut properly, the strings align nicely on the neck, there are no problems at all. Sadowski's nut design has spoiled all others for me, and I also would probably prefer a Graphtec Tusk nut over this one too, but there's no way I'm going to mess with swapping this out. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Bridge. The Goto bridge is excellent. It's higher mass than a standard bridge without being a huge chunk of metal. I like the graceful curves in its design. It has grooves to keep the saddles in line, 2 extra screws in the front for greater resonance, and I was able to adjust it for super low action. That last point is both good and bad. The bad part is with the saddles this low, the height adjustment screws are protruding so far that they sometimes snag on my hand or on the lining of my gig bag. I wish they were a little shorter and or smoothed off on top, but I did check them against another bridge and they're the standard height. I suspect this could be resolved with a neck shim to raise the overall height of the strings relative to the body while still maintaining low action, but that's not something I want to mess with just to get rid of the protruding screws on the bridge. I'll give the bridge a 9 out of 10. Action. I've already talked about this a lot. There's just something incredible about this particular Jaguar neck, how it seats in the neck pocket on the body, and how it integrates with the Goto bridge. I've managed to dial in a perfect setup. This bass has the lowest action I've ever managed to achieve on a bass, with absolutely 0 fret buzz. 10 out of 10. Sound. I'm going to talk mostly about the split coil pickup here, since that's what I use most of the time. This again is the stock pickup from a Squier 40th Anniversary Precision Bass. It sounds incredible. This is the only bass I've owned where I've actually had bandmates come up to me after a rehearsal and comment on how great it sounds. The DiMarzio Ultra Jazz pickup provides a nice alternative when I want more of that Jocko tone, but honestly, I don't even need it. It's just a bonus to make this bass a bit more versatile, but even if it only had 1 pickup, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Extra credit. As I've noted in earlier videos, I offer up to 10 extra credit points, 2 to 5 points for an included gig bag, 2 points for shipping with flat wound strings, and 1 to 3 je ne sais quoi points. Obviously, as a Frankenbass I assembled myself, the first 2 criteria don't apply, although if one of the basses I assembled from this had come with a gig bag, I'd have given it those points. I'm going to give this bass 1 je ne sais quoi point because I don't know what exactly made this particular Jaguar bass neck so good, I'm just glad that I got it. Final score. Okay, let's tally things up. Just a reminder that according to my price to score matrix, if I'm pricing this bass at $1128, it needs at least a 93. If I'm pricing it at $569, the baseline is an 86. Design, 10. Neck, 10. Electronics, 8. Pickups, 6. Cavities, 9. Hardware, 9. Nut, 9. Bridge, 9. Action, 10. Sound, 10. Extra credit, 1. Final score, 91. Does this bass make the cut? Obviously, it's hard for me to be objective here because I have such a personal connection with it. But practically speaking, it probably was not worth me spending a total of over $1,100 on. But if I value it under $600, then it's absolutely amazing. More realistically, I think I can count the sale of the Jaguar body against its total cost, but not the 40th Anniversary Precision. So if I shave $227 off of that $1128, I get what I would truly price this bass at. Sorry for the bait and switch, which is $901. For that price, this bass just barely needed to score a 91.
Nailed it.
Plus, what's great about a mod platform instrument like this is that I don't need to feel precious about it. If I find in a month or a year or a decade that there's some aspect of it I'm not totally happy with, I can just swap it out. I know it's weird to do a review of a one-off instrument that I've assembled from parts, but I'm hopeful that this has shown what's possible if you're willing to tinker and try new things, even if you don't possess any luthier skills. Although this bass technically just passes the test of my objective review, it means much more to me personally than any other instrument I've owned, precisely because I've put so much of myself into it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and click the bell so you'll be notified next time I engage in more of my nonsense. And please check out my Patreon and Bandcamp, linked below. Thanks for watching.